very clear with you analytically. Chairman Bradley is trying to resist a finding by this group of scientists that the science used at the time of the Willingham investigation is insupportable and false. Every analyst, every expert in this field that has looked at it, whether it was the independent group led by John Montini, whether it was DeHaan, whether it was Mark Goodson, who you just hear from, everyone said that the science then was wrong. Now, that is extraordinarily significant. That is a finding you must make. The only group that came forward and stood behind the report now, at this last date, last minute, is the Fire Marshal's Office, which raises more concerns, it ought to, for all of you, than before. Now, as to the, you cannot reach the issue of the duty to correct. You cannot reach any issue in this case that's significant unless you first made a finding that the science was unreliable and wrong. And I don't think there's any dispute about that, and it's time to stop pussyfooting around and say it directly. You're scientists. You can make that determination. That's number one. Number two, once it's clear that the science was wrong, this whole issue of a duty to correct is probably the most profound one that you have to deal with. Tom Bohan's letter to you, Paul Gianelli, it's very clear. What Dr. Kerrigan was talking about with the FBI. Let's be clear. The FBI and the composite bullet lead analysis case, it's exactly on point. When they came to the conclusions that the assumptions that they were using, saying this bullet came from this box of ammunition, was false, scientifically incorrect. They then went back and they sent out letters to prosecutors all across the country saying we can't stand behind it. That's what Artie Eisenberg's lab, every DNA lab, when they find out that an analyst may have messed up on controls or that there was something was wrong, every forensic scientist sends out a letter to all the prosecutors, all the clients saying this was an error. Now, it's very clear, I'm sure to all of you by this point, except apparently for Chairman Bradley, that the assumptions, the specific indicators that these people testified as being true about how wood burns and it can't, melt the aluminum and auto ventilation and the bed springs, virtually every indicator in this case was wrong. And that was the basis of their false assumptions. And that, obviously, at some point in time, the Fire Marshal's Office should have known about it and does know about it. The most disturbing thing of all, I'm sure you all agree when you think about it, is that they, at this late date, on August 20th, gave you a letter saying we support what Vasquez said. And that is the most disturbing thing of all. That means that there's more work to be done in terms of duty to correct. It is not, the legislature was very clear about this. And Lance Evans was citing the provisions. The idea here is that if you find that there was bad science, right, and it should have been corrected by the lab and it's negligence for them not to do so, then it's very simple. You can just conduct an audit. It's been done all the time. You appoint somebody independent to do it. I don't think at this point we can trust the Fire Marshal's Office itself to do it, given the last slide submission they made to you. Thank you for your consideration.